Dr. Paul Caruso and his wife, Dr. Don Caruso, life was not going to be business as usual when they decided to start the Hope House. They looked in the community and they saw a need that was great, a need though that was probably under the radar for most of us. The idea of having homeless or displaced kids in our community is probably foreign to most of us. We probably don't see a lot of the problems day to day that go on in our community that cause kids to be uprooted from their traditional family life to be placed somewhere else. And before the Hope House, there really was a patchwork of places kids could go. There certainly wasn't a facility like the Hope House that provided hope, provided love, provided opportunities for kids to reconnect and to keep going in their life. But we're really fortunate to have both Don and Paul here with us and have them in our community. And we certainly are appreciative of their efforts with the Hope House. I want you to hear directly from Paul, though, what they're doing over there and why it deserves our best efforts. So could you give our speaker, Dr. Paul Caruso, a great West round of applause.
You guys tell me if it's too loud. My name is Paul Caruso. I'm a neonatologist here in Cape Girardeau. I practice at Southeast Missouri Hospital. I'm gonna move quickly because I know that your time is limited and is important, and I want to have some time for questions. So if I'm going through and you need to slow me down, tell me. I initially moved to Cape Girardeau back in 1999 with my wife. She's a child psychiatrist, and I was a pediatrician working with Dr. Jess Ramsey as a pediatric hospitalist. And that was when I first got involved in foster care. Mainly because my wife was seeing some of these children in her practice, and she asked me what I thought about becoming a foster parent. I had not given it any thought before then, I mean, not at all. And I didn't really think it was something that I'd want to do. But then after getting involved with that, I realized what an amazing system we had down here, and how many children were actually in need that we could do something to help. So that's how I got started. I moved back to California for a couple of years to do a fellowship to become a neonatologist. I required 3 more years of training, and I thought I was going to settle back there and practice until I got a call from Southeast Hospital from Jim Wente, who asked me if I would consider coming back and working in the NICU here. And I told him if it was any other place besides Southeast Hospital and Cape Girardeau, because my wife and I love living here so much. And we realized after giving it, really did take us a whole lot, comparing our life in California and our life here, and we just said, this is where we want to raise our family, and this is where we want to live and settle. And we've really found our own home here. So that's a little bit on my background. I titled this, I made this specifically for you guys, and it's titled is What We Do Matters. And I realized that in a way I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, because you guys are a service organization, and I assume by that you realize that what you do in life can make a difference for other people. But I think a lot of people don't realize that, and even people who are doing that maybe every now and then can use a little reminder, a little encouragement. So I want to tell you how I know, and I wanted to use that word know, that what we do matters. I don't think that what we do matters. I don't believe it, and I'm going to tell you why I know it, that what we do matters. And I'm going to take you back to, I've been back in Cape Girardeau. I moved back here in 2008, and I've been back here for about 2 months. And I got a call about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was at home sleeping, and they said, we need you to come to the hospital right away. Said, we have a woman, she's just come in, she hasn't had any prenatal care, she doesn't know how long she's been pregnant, but the baby doesn't have a very reassuring heart rate, and we're going to do an emergency C-section. So, of course, I rushed into the hospital right at about the time that she was delivered, and the baby was born at about 27 weeks gestation, so about 3 months early, weighed just a little over 2 pounds. It was 2 pounds, 4 ounces. And when the baby was born, was not doing anything. Had a very low heart rate, but other than that, wasn't moving, wasn't breathing, well, this is something that I'm trained to do, and we just kind of go into autopilot and start suctioning out the airway and getting the baby breathing, and quickly realized this baby wasn't going to do a whole lot, so put the baby on a ventilator, and later found out that she had a pretty significant pneumonia, was on IV antibiotics, and ended up remaining in our hospital for about 3 months. Well, that baby was then discharged home. Because of the mother's personal circumstances, the baby went into foster care and went into a medical foster care home, of which there were only 2 in Cape Girardeau at the time. That home was a nurse who was taking care of her, but then she had some personal circumstances with her own child requiring surgery, and then could no longer care for that baby. Well, the only other medical foster care home was my home, was my wife and I's, and so we ended up taking the baby with us. So it was very strange to me to have had taken care of this baby from birth who was critically ill, and now to have that child in my house. Well, long story short, after 3 years, we adopted that girl, because even though she was only supposed to stay with us for a few months until she went home, that didn't end up happening. And so that's Olive, and I brought Olive here today. And so if anyone ever says to me that what we do doesn't really matter, I can just simply show them Olive and say, I have living proof running around my house that everything that we did in that hospital at that time, not just myself, but everybody involved, and even some things out of our control, but everybody worked together in order to assure that this little girl has a quality life, and that she's doing well. She's my trump card when it comes to that discussion. So let me move on to foster care, and let me explain to you what we're trying to do at Hope Children's Home. So these numbers are from 2010. It's the last time we have like full year statistics. And in 2010, jump forward, there are a little over 10,000 children in foster care in the state of Missouri. Okay? Every day in Missouri, 21 children are taken into foster care. That's in our state. Okay? And of those, just so you know, those 10,000 children, about half of them are placed in a kinship home, and about half of them are placed in a foster home. A kinship home is a family member, a grandparent, or a cousin, or an aunt who's been shown, who's gone through a background check and they feel is a safe place for the baby. But the other half need to be taken care of by foster parents. All children who come into foster care, they're coming into foster care for a reason. So they've all suffered some type of trauma, whether it be neglect, whether it be physical abuse, sexual abuse, or emotional trauma. And most of the time, the children are suffering, various numbers of all of these things, to a degree. You may be physically neglected, you're also suffering emotionally, and there's also probably some medical neglect also. But now I'm going to bring this closer to home and tell you that this is in Cape Girardeau right now. We have over 200 children that are in foster care in our county. Okay, and sensitive. We have 32 licensed kinship homes. So those are family members that are taking care of about 60 of those 200 children, which leaves 140 children in our foster care system that need to be cared for by foster families. We have 34 licensed foster homes to take care of 140 children in essence. Well, you can imagine, it's difficult to take one child into your home. Well, we need an average of 4 to 5 children in each home. There's just, unfortunately, the need greatly outweighs the number of homes that we have available. The average length of stay in foster care is 24 months, and that has risen dramatically, and part of that is why so many children are in foster care today. They're seeing a lot more drug use and substance abuse, and children who are taken into custody because of substance abuse end up being in custody much longer because those parents have to go through a treatment program. And then there's a high recidivism rate where they relapse. And so it ends up being that these children end up in foster care for much longer. Approximately 50% of these children will eventually end up either being lifelong foster children or adopted into a foster home. Okay? Whereas half of them will eventually make it back home. Even that, it can take years. And this is a time of a lot of stress, a lot of upheaval for these children. So my wife is always the one who comes up with the ideas in our house. So she was the one who got us into foster care. And we ended up, through foster care, adopting 6 children. And we have a 7th child who is our biological child, and then we have an 8th child who was a private adoption. So we have a large family, and we were pretty much full as far as the division of family, our children's services was concerned. So then my wife asked me what I thought about starting a foster home. And I told her I hadn't really given it any thought, but what was she thinking? And what she was thinking was that it would be great if we had an emergency home for these children. Because what happens to a child who comes into foster care? They normally come in either through the police. You know, the police are called to the home, and they find it's a bad situation. They take the child into care, in which case they may be taken back to the police station, or they come in through the emergency room. There's a medical problem, and then it's found that the child's being abused or neglected somehow. Or they're taken in through children's services, and they're at the Division of Family Services. So what happens is they're sitting there and they're waiting for a place. As you imagine, they're frightened, they don't have any of their belongings, and they've been removed from their parents, who we may all realize is not a safe home, it's not a nurturing home, it's not a good home for these children, but it's still the only home that these children know. So being removed from that is traumatic for them, even though we would consider being in that home traumatic. So my wife thought of the idea, what if we had a home where the children could just be immediately placed? So we were going to always try to have a place for them. And while they're there, they can get a medical screening, they can get a dental screening, and they can get a psychological screening. And all that can be done within 48 hours. And then the caseworker has the time to find the right home for those babies, or those children. Because most of the time what happens is they just start with the letter A in the alphabet and start working down the list trying to find a home, because these children are sitting there. They need a home right away. I think maybe that's why we have so many kids. I hadn't thought about that before. Name it starts in C. Maybe Caruso just kept getting marked off. So put the children in this home, put them in a safe environment, have them with a couple who lives there permanently, who are equipped to deal with children in transition, and get them somewhere safe, get them to the right home for them. So that was our initial thought. Well, currently we've kind of progressed, and we have 3 missions right now. And mainly because the need is so great, we realized that we couldn't just have those 6 lots, or just do that emergency. So our mission is grown. And currently, we have 3 components. The first is to help the foster children, and that is primarily what we spend 90 to 95% of our time on. And then we have 2 other missions. One is to support foster parents, to give them the resources to keep foster parents in the system so that they don't burn out. And the other is to recruit more foster parents so that we can get more people to provide that safe, nurturing home for these children that they need. Because a lot of people, it wasn't on my radar. I mean, I didn't even give it a thought until my wife brought it up. And I think a lot of other people never even think about it. So currently, helping foster children, we have these 6 emergency spots. That works the way I initially said. We try to keep openings available so that large sibling groups can come at once, so that children can then get that evaluation that they needed, and then can get to that home that eventually is going to provide them a safe, nurturing environment. It's considered a transitional home for the children who are in those kind of spots. It's safe, of course. They receive nurture, clothing, warm bed. They get the medical, dental, and psychological screening. And hopefully we get them in a home that matches their needs. But then we also have 6 permanent spots. And those are children who, for whatever reason, that really becomes their home, And for those children, we do that. It keeps the larger groups together, so people who can't take those large groups. We help those children develop life skills. The teenagers, we try to get them jobs so that they can understand that need of work. We try to foster a sense of responsibility and a sense of family. And if you see that, the older kids do treat the younger kids there like siblings, sometimes in a negative way, because we all know older kids, siblings pick on younger ones, but also in a positive way. When they go to groups together, when they go to social outings or things like that, you see the older kids helping take care of the younger ones. And I think that's important, because they need to create that sense of family. Other ways we support foster families, we have a clothes closet. When a child comes into foster care, they often do not have any clothes other than those clothes that they're wearing. They get a small allowance from Children's Services to go out and buy clothes, but other than maybe 1 outfit and a couple pairs of underwear, it doesn't cover more than that. And a lot of the families who are doing foster care, don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of resources. And what we want to do is we don't want someone to not do foster care because they don't have the resources to do it. We want to help support that. So we have a clothes closet. It also has cribs. It has car seats. It has all these things available for foster families to get. We provide respite care, which is sometimes just a weekend break for that foster family. You know, it's just the kids go into the Hope Children's Home if there's an opening there for 2 or 3 days while that family maybe is traveling out of town or they need something, they need a break. And then we provide training, which is education in order to, you know, keep them licensed. But then also we provide training for new foster parents, people who are considering becoming foster parents. Brings us to the third group, our third mission, which is recruiting those foster parents. I'm going to move along, but really what you really want people to realize is that, you know, being a foster parent is an extremely rewarding thing, both for you and also for maybe the children in your house. Just because it gives you that, it helps you to start thinking more globally and more community, and here you are helping to provide a safe, loving home for another child. But what you really also get the opportunity to do is make a lasting difference in a child's life. Because I've seen that we've been able to do that in children, and I know many people have that ability also. So in a way, everybody has that ability to help foster children. It doesn't mean you have to become a foster parent, although if anybody was interested, I'd love to help get you on that path. But also, we all have different skills in which we can help children in foster care. You know, some people help with donations. Some people help, especially in our children's home, help work with the home. So Hope Children's Home really could not be successful without our community support. And you know, when my wife and I started this, we didn't really give it a whole lot of thought. If we had sat down and probably did a business plan and really realized all that it was going to take in order to make this successful, we probably wouldn't have done it. We would have abandoned it at that point. But what we didn't do was that, and instead, we amazingly found this outpouring from our community that has helped us to make this successful in ways. We've had people donate this is just a few examples of people and companies that have helped. But we bought a law building in Jackson, and we converted that into a home. Well, you know, there was a lot of plumbing, electrical work, walls needed to go up. We needed to change that from an office building to a home. And all of that time was donated. You know, we purchased the supplies, but all the time was donated in order to put all that in. We needed to put in a sprinkler system, a fire sprinkler system, and that was also donated, a lot of that time, in order to put that in. New McKendree Church, their men's group has kind of adopted that home as the place for them to kind of help do some of their community service. I'm sure they do a lot of work elsewhere, but they come in and help with painting and yard work and all these things that, you know, we were not going to be capable of doing, and we had not even really given a thought as towards how we were going to get that accomplished. They came forward and volunteered, which is just amazing for us. So one of the gifts that this has given to me is just to see how much the community how much community organizations have become involved to help us become successful in something that was, you know, obviously important to us. So just a couple things on the needs. So we are a 501c nonprofit organization, so all donations to our home are tax deductible. We currently have 12 children living full-time in the house. That's the maximum that we can hold. And when we first started this, we were told, well, you know, we may have 3 or 4 kids there, but, you know, we're not really sure we're going to be able to, you know, put more there because we don't know how a group home would work. Well, I showed you the numbers as far as the needs in our community, and the point is, we sometimes have gone over 12 just because there was no other place to put a child, and they'll put them with us for a few days until they can find them into another place. But taking care of 12 children full-time, and children that might have medical appointments and dental appointments, and getting them to school and getting them all the clothing and food and everything that they need, you can require, that takes, you know, quite a bit of financial support. So just the regular maintenance of that house is, I mean, that's a need. And then special events, because we want to get these children to special, we want them to live a good life while they're with us and to kind of see a different life. And so part of that is, you know, getting them out to things and out there in the community and enjoying things. and realizing how life can be different than the life that they're really used to. Currently, a big need for us is to get a 12-person passenger van, and this is what we're hoping that your auction and your support is going to help us with. So why do we need a van? Well, because we often have 12 children in the home. We take them to medical appointments. We take them to work. If they're teenagers, we want them to have jobs. We really work on them getting them that. But they don't have cars, and they don't have insurance. They don't have all these things that you need. So we need to take them to these places. So we take them to work. We take them to church every Sunday if they want to go. It's not mandated, but it's offered. We make that, and we'll take them to multiple churches if that's a church that they want to be at, because we think that's important. And then social and community events, taking all the kids to some of these to the Bible weekends that they've had. This summer Bible class, it was just amazing to see all of them there and participating and having a great time. So what do we need? So we're going to be reasonable, and I think that what really fits our need is to get some type of late model Ford or Chevy. By that I mean a 2010 or 2011. There's Cape Auto Sales here in town, has a few of those on their lot, and they tend to run between $18,000 and $21,000. So that's about the financial support that we need in order to get that. As part of that, connections I think are helpful. So if anybody has a connection with a dealership or somebody who knows that we can get a van at we're all for saving money and for using our money judiciously. Any dollar we don't spend on the van is a dollar we can spend meeting a child's needs somewhere else. So if anyone has connections there, that's always very helpful in order to get this. So this is immediately, I think, our biggest pressing need, other than day-to-day operations of keeping the home going. So just as a brief overview on this. So our goal is to provide a safe home for the children who are placed in our care. And definitely, if the last years of any is representative of our future, we know that there will always be a need for our home, and there will be a number of children in care there. The other is to identify and address each child's individual needs. Ultimately, we would prefer those 6 permanent slots. We would prefer those children to get out into the community and be adopted by a family. So that's one of the things we'd like to do in order to help address that. Provide a nurturing environment, and then ultimately show a different way of life for children, so that we aren't just putting a Band-Aid on a problem, but we're actually helping these children so that when they grow up to be adults, that they're contributing members of our society, or are happy and well-adjusted and have healthy families of their own, as opposed to repeating the cycle of their children. My daughter Olive, her mother was in the foster care system, and she didn't do well in it. She wasn't, for whatever reason, it didn't work for her. And she repeated the same problems that her mother did. Well, we're really hoping that we've stopped that now, in that cycle. Frederick Douglass, who's a much smarter man than I, said, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." And I think that is a very true statement, and that is something that really hits to the heart of what our goal here is, to build strong children rather than try to deal with them as broken adults. This is a picture of our home on Jackson, if any of you, it's on Main Street in Jackson. Those are some people working on it. And let's see. And here's our logo and our website, which we'll try to link with you, Darren.
Yeah.
Sorry if I went over. Like I said, I could talk forever, but I'd be happy to take any questions from any of you. Yes?
I remember in the presentation to the exec board, what were the numbers on, at any point in time in Cape Girardeau, the number of children in need and the number of households?
Yeah, so currently there's 200 children in foster care in Cape Girardeau County. And there are 32, it varies, 32 to 34 foster homes right now to take care of those children. Now, some of those children are in relative placements after they've been, found to be a safe environment, but that's not a majority of the children. The majority of those children are in foster homes. So, and we know that a group home is not the best long-term placement, and that's why when we established it, it was more for short-term emergency placement. but the need here is just great. And if you talk to Cindy Stone, who's the director there, she'll tell you, they get calls all the time from other counties saying, that, we have a child, or we have a 3-sibling group, and we don't have a place for them, do you have room? And we'll try to take those, but really, you're already disrupting this child's life. They're taken into custody, they're being removed from their family, and then you're gonna take them and move them to a new county and put them in a new school. We wanna do everything we can to keep the children in Cape County, so that we can try to keep some consistency in their life,
Do you have any safety concerns with, dealing with possibly the parents that have, had these
that was
kids?
my concern. I'll be honest with you. So when my wife asked me, I'll tell you, I was like, no, I'm not, I said, sure, I'll do the classes, and I was thinking, we'll sit in these classes, because you have to do 10 weeks, and it's 3-hour classes each week. I figured she'll sit in the class, and then she'll all of a sudden say, well, there's no way we're doing this. But, after about the 3rd class, I was like, this is something I need to do. And, we have not had any problems with any of the parents of the children that we take care of. Sometimes they do kind of give you a look like, I don't know why they think you're a better parent than me, or, they get things like that. And you can't tell them that, why. But no, actually, and most of the parents love their children. They're just incapable of taking care of them for whatever their physical, mental, or our medical problem is. I've not had that of an issue. We've not had an issue with the home. I believe there was one time when they said there was someone who had driven by the home whose child was in there, and that was it. So, the children themselves are great. I was just amazed, because I think we're going to get these incredibly damaged children who you can't do anything with, and they're not. And so what are we going to be doing? We're going to be exposing our kids to other kids who have problems, and they're not. They're loving children who are great, and they just need somebody to show them, a different way of living. And they've really just kind of taken our home. And like I said, the children we've adopted, when we were thinking, we had adopted 3 kids, and then we'd moved away, and we had not done foster care for a number of years. When we told them we were thinking of doing it again, they were just all for that, because they I think understood how it had changed their life. And, they realized that we can do that for someone else.
Although they're saying, no more kids now.
We have a pretty active home. We have 7 kids living in the house. All right.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.